And you're very welcome back to the programme. I'm delighted to welcome onto it now employment solicitor at Richard Grogan Associate Solicitors, Richard Grogan. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning to you.
It's great to have you on the show, and congratulations on the exposure you're getting. I know you're incredibly popular on TikTok, and of course it's down to you and your information, your presentation. But I was thinking, there's been a massive vacuum, hasn't there? Clearly that you are filling, and others to some extent, but you certainly, that people have a lot of questions, but obviously struggled in the past to find the answers. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does in a way. I mean, I think the issue on it is if you take, we say there's an awful lot of solicitors' offices that have lots of great information up on their website. The Law Society of Ireland has great information up on their website, but I suppose I've just changed it and put it short, snappy little pieces up on Instagram and TikTok, and people don't want to read, 4 pages. They just want to get, to the point, and so that's what I'm trying to do.
They want the ice cream. They don't want the veggies, and you give them the ice cream.
Yeah, nobody likes veggies. Yeah, okay. Everybody likes. So I'm just giving them snippets of information, and hopefully that helps people, employers and employees.
Yeah, but how has it been received by employers, I wonder? Are you getting any feedback from them? Because, ignorance sometimes is bliss, and you're empowering people. And maybe there are maybe some employers, most employers, by the way, are fantastic, by the way. But I'm saying, are you getting any pushback from that area?
Some pushback from some employers, but actually quite interesting. A number of employers are sort of sending me messages with, I didn't know about this. Thanks very much. I'm going to get this sorted. So I think that helps avoid unnecessary problems in the workplaces. And by the way, most of these are not ones that are going to have people off down in the WRC. These are sort of basic ones that really should be sorted out in the workplace. And hopefully that helps, get the problem sorted.
All right. Someone was on to us. They were a close contact over Christmas. They had upper respiratory symptoms, so they went for a PCR test. They didn't get their PCR test for 7 days, the result for 7 days, but they were off work for 7 days, and off work for no reason as such, because it turns out they did not have COVID. The employer has obviously significantly docked their wages, and they can't, this is their question, apparently because they've got no evidence of a positive test, be it antigen or PCR, they feel they can't claim for any sickness benefit. Is there any advice you can give them?
That's the problem. If you're not sick, you don't get sickness benefit. And if you don't have a message from the HSE saying that you have to self-isolate, you don't get the social welfare either. So in companies, for example, who have sick pay schemes, if you're not sick, you don't get paid. So it's an awful thing to say. If you had COVID and you had a positive, then you would be under sick pay. If you come and you haven't had COVID and you go, great, yeah, but you don't get paid. So, that's just the law as it is. We didn't draft it. It was drafted in a different period, and nobody's done anything over the last 2 years about this. But that's just the way it is.
Yeah, that just is a particular grey area then. You're not at work, and you could and should be, but you can't be because you're waiting on a PCR test, which turns out negative, so you fall between the two stools.
Well, it's not grey, it's black and white. You're either ill or you're not ill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
It's as simple as that. Yeah, unfortunately for a lot of people.
If and there's a mixture of questions too, not all COVID related, but particularly with the new changes to close contacts. Rather than me sort of, are there obvious questions I should be asking, Richard, rather than me confusing it? Because now antigen tests can be used to register for illness benefit. I'm sure maybe employers might want more evidence. I don't know. What do we need to be looking out for with these new rules, do you think, Richard?
Well, I mean, I think the big problem that's coming up is that you can go back into the workplace if you have no symptoms, if you're a close contact. But the issue on it is the employer can't ask you, are you fully vaccinated? So that's one issue. That's causing problems with other employees, by the way, because sometimes the employer doesn't know what the vaccination status is, but other employees do. And if somebody comes and says to the employer, well, I know that Joe isn't vaccinated, the employer says, well, I can't even ask him under the current legislation. He says he's here and I can do nothing about it. And if the employer says, well, right, I'm going to take the decision to send the person home for 7 days, the employer has to pay. So the employer goes, well, I'll just trust them. So that's one. The other big one is that if you have to self-isolate, sorry, not isolate, but you have to come to the workplace, you have to take regular antigen tests and you have to wear the medical mask. Now, actually, the government has not set out who pays for that. Is it the employer? Is it the employee?
But you know they're going to leave that as guidance, so they never have to make that decision.
Well, that's right, but the employee arrives at the front door of the factory or the shop, and they have a non-medical mask, and the employer says, "Where's your medical mask?" And they say, "Well, you have to provide it." And the employer said, "Well, actually, you shouldn't have left home without a medical mask." So, I'm not very happy that you're not following the guidelines. So, I mean, this is the sort of stuff that comes out, and then they say you have to have regular antigen tests. Now, they're €3 to €4 each. So, I think there's an issue there. For employers, there's a cost, and for the employees, there's a cost. But nobody's come out with the guidance as to who pays.
Plus, the person who was a close contact could present with the same negative antigen test every day, because I'm not sure if they're obliged to show it to an employer. I'm sure they're not, but they're not going to keep it, and they're not going to see the person conducting the test either. But I suppose a lot of this is down to trust and responsibility and people being expected to do the right thing, Richard.
Well, of course, it's all down to that. The difficulty that we're getting back and the pushback we're getting at the moment is from other employees in premises who are saying, we're concerned if somebody's going to be coming in here that they are taking the antigen tests, and this is the problem. The employer can't say to that person, by the way, when you're coming in, there's an antigen test over there. Would you ever take it before you go up to the room where you're with the other men and women who are working here? And the person goes, well, you can't ask me to take an antigen test. So that's a problem. So that's one of the issues that they haven't given any guidance as to how they deal with that.
Is it legal for people an employer to discriminate against employees who are not vaccinated and to not let them on the work premises?
Yeah, it's not discrimination. It could be a claim under the Payment of Wages Act, or it could be an unfair dismissal claim, but it's not discrimination unless the person can show that they can't get vaccinated, in which case it would be a discrimination case on the medical grounds. But, there are some employers, by the way, who are effectively coming in from contractors who have been told by the main contractor, if these people aren't vaccinated and if they don't do an antigen every day, they're not coming onto my site. That's the problem. In that situation, the employer says, well, look, it's nothing to do with me. I just can't get you onto the site.
Yeah, okay. If you get COVID on your holidays, and a lot of this would have been at Christmas holidays, so you're sick with COVID, isolated on your holidays, that's just your holidays, is it? Or can you declare that and then take holidays again?
Yeah, if you get sick while you're on holidays, and this goes back to actually 1997, it's in the Organisation Working Time Act. If you produce a doctor's certificate to say that you were sick, you get those days back. But it's a doctor's certificate, by the way, not a PCR. It's actually a doctor's certificate. So that's one that people have. Going down to your doctor, the doctor says, well, if it was only an antigen test, the doctor would say, well, sure, I don't know whether you were sick or not. So it is a doctor's certificate. And to be honest with you, that just hasn't kept up with the reality as well. I don't want to see a load of people having to go down to doctors' surgeries to get them back, but in reality, that's what they have to do. And by the way, GPs are under huge pressure as it is at the moment, rather than be given out a certificate to say that somebody was sick.
16 years working with a company and no pay rise. Am I entitled to one now? I mean, is there ever an entitlement to a pay rise as such?
No. Simple answer. Get a new job. If you don't like the job, get a new job. I mean, that's the reality. No.
Okay. If you get approximately 22 days annual leave, but your company only lets you carry over 39 hours into January, and here we're going to get into this, we're already opening this can of worm of when your holidays run from. But anyway, I'm going to ask the question and let you deal with the worms if that's all right. If you get approximately 10 to 22 days annual leave, but your company only tells you can carry over 39 hours into January and have to use them by March, are they allowed to take the rest of the days off you if you wanted to carry more than 39 hours, as our company states, that my extra hours will be lost and only can carry 39 after December, but they must be used by March. So they said the same thing twice there, but I think you get the message.
The annual leave year in the legislation, which is Section 2 of the Organisation Working Time Act, is the 1st of April to the 31st of March. I've been on social media screaming that they don't tell me it's anything else. So but they can certainly say you have to use it by the 31st of March because that's the end of the annual leave year. They have to make sure that you actually take 20 of the days because they can actually send you home and say, go home, you haven't taken your holidays. But the 2 days over the legislation only refers to the 20 days, not the 22. So no, they can't stop you carrying over after 31 December, but they can after 31 March.
Right. And can a company say you need to take 7 days in Q1, 8 days in Q2, and whatever the remainder is in Q3? Can a company put that? Can that be stated and enforced?
All right. There was always time when you had builders' holidays, so the first 2 weeks in August. Employers can put in a time where you have to take a certain period of time, but they have to discuss that with you or the union, take into account your personal and family circumstances and the opportunity for rest and relaxation. But one of the provisions is they're obliged to make sure that you take 2 weeks at one stage in the year. But a lot of companies we close for the first 2 weeks of August, and when you're signing up your contract, you know what you're getting, and that's part and parcel of if you're working in a factory, they close. So that's allowed, yes, but it has to look at each individual case. Is
the state still paying redundancy to employees if the employer can't fund it?
Yes.
Could someone tell me, right, this last one here. I work in retail. The rotas are usually done out 3 weeks in advance. The manager always comes in at the last minute looking to do extra hours, which is too short notice. Then the manager takes spite and then you don't get asked again. I think this is so unfair. Currently in receipt of WFP, a manager only gives 16 hours knowing I lose payment and cannot get banned contract either. I've asked a number of times for this, like, I'm there a lot of years and there are people getting all the hours going, this is so unfair. So I think they're being disadvantaged because they don't change their working schedule at the last minute.
Well, you're entitled to go look for a banded hours contract, so that person can do that. In relation to notification of working time, you're supposed to get it on the Thursday before the week beforehand. So today, you should be getting the notification for next week. But if they give it 3 weeks in advance, if somebody doesn't want to take additional hours that are offered, then that's just the way it works. An employer comes in and says, by the way, there's overtime here, does anybody want it? And if you say you don't, well, that's unfortunate,
All right, very last one. Working for the same company for 14 years, carrying out government-type work, employed as a self-employed contractor, told how to do the job and supplied with tools. What are my rights?
Wow. All right. They need to see a solicitor fairly quickly because are they really a self-employed contractor or are they not? But if they've been putting in tax returns as a self-employed contractor, there's a real issue there that you don't actually have any rights. So, but they need to see a solicitor. And there's some great solicitors up in Donegal, so go and talk to one of those because they'll be able to sort them out.
Richard Grogan, employment solicitor, Richard Grogan Associates Solicitors. Our listeners and viewers might be disappointed if you didn't do the catchphrase, but maybe you reserve that only for social media?
I'll do it. If you really ask, I'll do it.
Go on then.
That's the law, and that's the